So today I just wanted to switch gears and talk about what is probably my most passionate subject when it comes to PC peripherals, audio, which I think right now, if you ask anybody, the Shure SM7B is the microphone to get. Even people who know nothing about microphones know about this microphone and know that they want this microphone. That's because of streamers, podcasters, musicians, and Joe Rogan using this microphone. And even though there are so many people out there who love this microphone, use this microphone daily, if you're going to be starting a stream or a podcast, I think there's a lot better options out there than the SM7B. Let's talk about that. Some positives though. First, it has a legendary pedigree. It was released in 1973 as the SM7. Fun fact, it was rebranded as the SM7B, which is just an upgraded moniker. What did they upgrade, you might ask? They included a windscreen, so the microphone is pretty much internally untouched since the 1970s. Second, it's a dynamic microphone. For those who don't know the differences between dynamics and condensers, I'll link a really good video for that down in the description. I just don't have the time to explain that sort of thing in this video. But being a dynamic microphone, the SM7B is really good at rejecting background noise and noise in general. Actually, it's one of the best dynamic microphones for that, and if you can tell here, I'm handling the microphone. That's another thing it's really good at, rejecting handling noise, so I don't really have to worry about jostling this thing around. And lastly, it's one of the smoothest dynamic mics out there, so it's really good for recording vocals. Those benefits come at a cost though, and while I do think that there are some good, genuine pros, I feel like there are more cons with this microphone than there are pros. So I mentioned the legendary pedigree, the legendary name of the Shure SM7B. Well, would you like to know what the Shure SM7B is known for by every audio engineer on the planet? It's known as the most quiet and gain-hungry microphone that you could possibly pick to use. The SM7B has a very high impedance, meaning its electrical resistance is much higher than something else, like a condenser microphone, or for that matter, most dynamics, because I can't think off the top of my head of any other microphone that has a higher impedance and lower sensitivity than this microphone. So that means you're going to need a lot more gain in order to not only get this thing at a good volume, but also get it at a volume where you don't hear the preamps, because that's something that a lot of people don't know. Something like a Scarlett Solo is not going to have enough gain to even get loud enough for this microphone, let alone have it to where you have enough headroom so the preamps aren't hissing in the background. So your average aspiring streamer has now bought an SM7B, a Scarlett Solo, and they plug it in and they're not getting enough gain. It sounds really shitty. There's a bunch of static hiss in the background and they don't know what to do. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to type into Google and they're going to find people talking about cloud lifters, FET heads, gain boosters, because that's really your only option other than getting another audio interface. And it's actually what I'm using right now to get a usable volume through this microphone, because there's absolutely not even close to enough room to run this microphone. For instance, this is what the microphone sounds like at the same volume I was using the gain booster at. And now this is with my audio interface maxed out. It cannot go any louder. So yeah, it doesn't sound great. So let's say you do get a Scarlett Solo, you get a cloud lifter, and you get yourself an SM7B. Well, guess what? You're almost $700 in the hole, when the entire time you could have just got a half-decent condenser microphone. And the best part is, using this setup, you could have saved a lot of money, because now you don't need to buy the cloud lifter, and this microphone is much cheaper. Because while on average condenser microphones are more expensive than dynamic microphones, the Shure SM7B is in fact the Shure SM7B, and it is a $400 microphone. So we have quite a lot of microphones that can be cheaper than that. This one is the Lewitt LCT 440 Pure. You get the shock mount, you get the microphone, you get two kinds of pop filters, all for $290. But with this microphone, I'm having it at a lower volume than what I was using with the SM7B and the gain booster. So if we consider the aspiring streamer who has a Scarlett Solo and they get this microphone instead, they've actually only spent about $410 for the whole setup, which is only $10 more expensive than just buying the SM7B. But I think the biggest difference with this setup, though, is the fact that I think it sounds better. Yes, this is really subjective, but honestly, I think it's a very good point to bring up. And that's the limitation of dynamic mics, because while they can be good for vocals and spoken word, I think they're definitely a lot better suited for tasks recording much louder things like instruments, because even with their lower sensitivity diaphragms, if you record something loud, the waves are still going to be picked up into the microphone. But condensers pick up pretty much everything, so you're just going to get a better result if you're having a quieter source, which is most likely going to be the case, unless you're like Jinxie or something, if you're talking into a microphone. I think the most important thing that you can learn from microphones is that it's not really about what microphone do you get, it's about what microphone works with your voice. My voice is very mid-forward. It has a little bit of low end, but not so much. Doesn't have much top end either. So I think a microphone like this, which is very dark and mid-forward, it kind of just overemphasizes everything and gets a little muddy. This adds in a lot more detail, and I really like that. Not only that, but with condensers, it's much easier to EQ in post. But what do you lose with a condenser setup? Surely there's some sort of catch, right? There is the downside of background rejection. As I said earlier, condenser microphones are more sensitive and they pick up a lot more things, and that also includes the background. However, it is definitely manageable if you just use some good technique. If you use a shock mount, a pop filter, and you set your gain properly, and you can easily reject most of the background noise. For instance, I've had a fan running full blast in the corner of this room the entire time. I actually am not monitoring this in real time. I'm expecting that there's some noticeable noise back there, but it's not going to be as drastic as if the microphone were to be, I don't know, if the microphone was like at this volume or something and I had to get this far away from it to actually speak. Well, this is pretty trash. It would also be better if that fan was off, so I'm going to turn that off now. But if you're a streamer, you're also on OBS, which has a lot of microphone plugins, so you can set a noise gate or a noise suppression, so you can even further reduce some of that background noise for pretty much free. Now, the most important thing, especially if you're streaming, is between your game audio or your bathtub stream audio, body painting audio, softcore. You know, Twitch is actually kind of a strange place these days. But between your main audio and your whatever potential background music you might have in the background, I don't think your audience is going to notice the fact that you're using a dynamic for background rejection instead of just setting things properly with the condenser. But what is a real con is the fact that the SM7... I wanted to make a Donald Trump joke. But what is a real con is the fact that the SM7B does look really cool. And unironically, I do think that makes a difference. I do think like 98% of people do not give a shit what microphone you use, but there is a confidence thing when it comes to your mic choice. My microphone of choice is a Neumann TLM 103. It's a $1,250 microphone, and I bought it not because I thought I could hear a $1,000 difference or anything, or it's $1,000 better than the LCT 440. I do think it sounds better, but I bought it because of how it looks. I mean, all black with the red logo that hasn't changed since the 1920s. And I'm German, so whenever I get anything that was made in Germany, I feel like it was made exactly for me, and this one was made directly in Berlin. And most importantly, this is kind of annoying for me to admit because I'm very anti-brand loyalty. I bought it for the brand, Neumann. There's something special about speaking into a microphone that people recognize just because of the logo and just because of how it looks, and they automatically know that you've got a good microphone. And all I can say is I 100% understand. So if you're a streamer and you want to get an SM7B just because it's an SM7B, I get it, go for it. But I guess the question I would ask myself is that, are you getting one because you want to get one, or are you getting one because everyone else is getting one? Because while I think it can be a genuine benefit to get a microphone that people will recognize, but I think if you're getting the microphone just because everyone else is doing it, that's just what streamers do, I think that's a little bit of a bad decision, mostly because then you don't know what you're missing out on. You don't know why everyone else is getting it. You're just getting it because everyone else is doing it. So I implore any new streamers or podcasters to watch some videos on what you can get on some SM7B alternatives. It might be easier and cheaper on you in the long run, but if you're someone who just wants that SM7B because of what it could do for you in recognition and you know what you're getting into, have a blast. But I think the most important thing to remember with microphones is that if it doesn't sound good, the audience is gonna fucking hate it. Even with my Neumann, no one's gonna give a shit if it's all black and the logo is from the 1920s. No one cares. And when it comes to the SM7B, yes, it's a legendary microphone. I'm not trying to take away from that. But is it the best option for everyone out there? No. Is it the best sounding mic in the world? No. And is it the most cost-effective solution? Absolutely not.